Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT community events this week with the front wheel drive series, which means the Hyundai Elantra N TCR and the Audi RS3 TCR at the Nürburgring. And I'm not alone, because as we have two different cars on track today, we also have two different voices in the commentator booth. As per usual, I am joined by Tim Ireland.
Hi, Lino. Yeah, we don't normally have 5 people in a GT3 race. That'd be chaos.
We could maybe arrange it, but I agree with you there. Yeah, right now in qualifying, the drivers will have 2 laps to set a valid lap time. And I think it will be fairly interesting because we didn't have the TCRs in quite a while. The race distance is 30 minutes and it is very tight on fuel, so we will see probably a difference as straight on goes the number 9 car, that is. I think we can expect a greater difference in strategies and driving styles across the race.
Yeah, hopefully. Like you said, it is a bit tight on fuel with a 30-minute race, so there is a little variation in strategy people can take here. And yeah, I'm sure it'll mix it up and make it a bit more of an interesting race somewhere around the mid-time.
Start of the race is, of course, always interesting in TCRs.
Yes.
Especially since it's a standing start. But yeah, we see one thing that we haven't seen before on a broadcast, or not much in general, because it's one of the new liveries that have been added with early access on the Hyundai Elantra, which you get at Battle Pass level 15. And I think it does look good.
It does look good. I really like this one. We've got another one of the new liveries skulking around on the racetrack as well, so you can contrast and compare all you like, but I think the Hyundai got the better of the two deals, personally.
Dominik Lala experimenting a bit with the gravel there. It's not the WRC car, this one. So I'm not sure if it took much of a liking to it, but that is him on his way onto his second lap. Dennis Kurzer in one of the Audis. Let's take a look at the current standings, and we can see the first lap went towards Joachim Thunder, 2:04.6. He has done quite a lot of time trialing with this car, so he is definitely used to this combo. And I think this is also around about where he placed at the time trials. But Enrico Bräuninger in P2 at the moment.
Yeah, I think any of our regular viewers will know that Thunder is definitely a fan of the Audi in all shapes and sizes. So he has been kind of rinsing the Audi in time trials, and yeah, he's not new to this combo.
He has beaten Moritz Löhner on this track.
He has.
So that was, I think, though, in the Hyundai with a 203.8. So a bit faster, but also a different car, of course. But it's looking good for him in this race.
We've got a good pack of 3 cars there. Unfortunately, 2 of them are ghosts, but it's showing the kind of the closeness of pace that's going on right now.
And you can also beautifully see how different each driver takes each line. Especially in the front-wheel drive cars, you will typically see more variations between the drivers, because it has a lot more influence on how you drive the car towards the outcome of a turn. Of course, if you throttle down too early, you will understeer, have lift-off oversteer. It drives very differently to what you're used to from rear-wheel drive cars. But here we go through the final turn. Dominik Lala improved to a 2:05.1. Joachim Thunder doesn't improve, but so does Bräuninger. So we have 1, 2, 3, Thunder, Lala, Bräuninger. And then it's Piotr Zadeibel having a return in front of Eric Häusler, Dennis Kurzer, and Mark Falatek. So I think we got an interesting situation here on our hands. But this might be the chance for Joachim Thunder to return to victory lane.
Yeah, it's been a while since he's stood on the top step of a podium. I'm sure he'll be itching to get back there. He just needs to get rid of his early race gremlins.
Well, he certainly has a good chance here today. Alongside him on the front row, Dominik Ladler. Eight cars on the grid, and the lights are on. And we go racing at the Nürburgring, and Enrico Bräuniger is not going. What happened to Enrico Bräuniger? Did he maybe stall the car? However, it's Joachim Thunder into turn 1 in the lead of the race. Piotr Zadeibel, due to Bräuniger's start, up into P3, right behind Dominik Ladler. But that was an interesting one.
Yeah, something went hideously wrong at the start there. I don't know what it was, but it definitely sent Bräuniger straight to the back of the field. He's not at the back anymore, but he had the pace, so hopefully he can catch back up again.
We said it earlier, this race might be more interesting on strategy than on actual wheel-to-wheel racing later on. But he sure does have some ground to make up now. He's currently behind Mark Faletic. But Joachim Thunder leading this race. Dominik Ladler is still hot on his heels though.
Yeah, Thunder got a good gap earlier on, but he's lost a couple of tenths, nothing major. But I was hoping he wouldn't shoot off into the distance, and Ladler does seem to be reeling in slowly back in again.
Oh, Ladler cutting across the Vedol chicane there. Must have really missed the braking. We've seen him going straight in the practice already, taking the fast chicane by accident. So maybe wasn't quite used to the speed he carried into there. Whatever it is, lost him quite some ground, and Piotr Zadeibel is not far behind. And Enrico Bräuniger actually also lost position to Eric Häusler.
Yeah, he made a bit of a feint coming into the chicane, and when he went to pull back into his original line, Eric Häusler took advantage of it and kind of dove down the inside and managed to gain the position. So he won't be too happy about that one, but he's definitely making headway on the gaps ahead of him.
Somebody with a great start to his race is definitely Dennis Kurzer, because he jumped up into P4. Oh, and that's Mark Faletic off, and that was where the aforementioned lift-off oversteer, I'd say, coming into fourth.
Yeah, his back end did not seem to want to be pointing in that direction, so I'm assuming it was, yeah, like you said, lift-off oversteer there.
Oh, and look at that damage. There's not much left of the
Oof.
front end of that Hyundai. However, I can come into the pits to repair the damage, so it's not all over yet. But it's a very, very tricky situation to be in, let's say it like that, because especially now with maybe also the fuel as an issue, you kind of want to lift, but you just can't. Because if you lift, exactly this thing will happen. The car will just completely oversteer, and you, even though you can save oversteer very well with front wheel drive, you just just put on opposite lock and floor it basically. It doesn't work after a certain angle, which you arrive at very quickly by having lift off oversteer. It really just snaps your rear end around.
Yeah, driving the front wheel drive cars is a very different experience from the rear wheel drive ones, and some of your kind of well ingrained instincts over the years of sim racing fight against you a bit, and then having the opposite effect of what you expect to do. You've really got to kind of reset your brain and try and remember that it's all the weights in a completely different place.
What TCRs do help a lot with, though, for me, was learning throttle control. Because I used to have, how would you say in English, a leaded foot?
Yeah.
So, like, I used to just stomp the throttle in my RA GT3s and stuff and rely on traction control. Well, it turns out, while it does work to a certain degree, it's not fast and it's not fuel efficient or tire preserving or good in any other form. And then I got to drive more front wheel drive cars like the TTRS Cup or the touring cars. And you really have to be quite careful with the throttle to really be fast, because take this as an example now, Joachim Thunder coming out of Vedol, if he floors it directly, he will just understeer into the grass. So you have to kind of see how much steering lock you have, how much grip level the car has left, and then apply a throttle accordingly to just max out the tire grip at that stage. And this knowledge or this kind of feeling, well, it does feel a bit different in TCR compared to, for example, a GT3 or GT4, the same knowledge applies. And it does really help you to be more aggressive, but at the same time more cautious at the exit of turns in any other car.
Freudinger has gained a couple of places because of the off-track incidents, shall we say, that happened. But he's having real trouble getting past Eric Housley here. He's still stuck behind him. There's not a lot of a gap between them, but he just can't manage to make a move.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's really surprising how, like, he isn't losing out anything. He's keeping it right where he needs to, but you just can't really find any way close enough to pass Eric Häusler. He has been on the inside of him, for example, here in Dunlop a couple of times, but you just can't really put it down fast enough or get the car to grip at stages where he needs it to grip to get past his German colleague.
They do seem to be catching up to Dennis Kurtz here, so like that. So maybe that's an opportunity for a move.
Indeed, Kurzer with a big off and up into P5, Bräuniger, and P4 for Häusler.
But a bit of a gap before they catch up to Piotr. So I think Bräuninger's going to have to just do it by himself here. He's not going to have to. He's not going to be able to rely on any kind of traffic shenanigans.
Ladler running wide, exiting turn 1.
Dominic Ladler not done a valid lap yet. So you must be pushing to try and catch up with Joachim Thunder, but the gap is steadily growing between them.
Really seems to be a car class where Joachim Thunder feels very confident.
Yeah, he does seem to like the TCRs a lot. We all know he likes an Audi, and so he's got one of his favourites in there. But he does seem to have spent a lot of time practicing it, and I think it's paid off for him.
The cool thing with the TCRs for me is also, while they are built with parity in mind, or they are built by parity guidelines basically, meaning that all TCRs that you see may be the Audi and Hyundai we have, or what you may see in real life, like the Honda or the Cupras, all these cars, they are built to the same performance spec. So they have certain requirements they need to fulfill, and that will distinguish basically the pace they have. On the other hand, you have BOP, so what you see in GT3s. Of course, they're also built to a certain rulebook, but they are then paired up with BOP, which TCRs usually don't need that much. And that means still that they have some notable differences in how they drive, but still have the same performance. It's not quite the same effect as BOP. It's hard to really explain what the difference is for somebody who's not been into motorsport all the time, but basically you will drive the cars and you will feel a notable difference, with the Audi being more aggressive, being more raw as well, and feeling a bit more powerful, while the Hyundai, for instance, is much more diligent and agile, but doesn't have quite the punch the Audi has. So it really depends on if you want to have a really smooth car to drive or you want to wrestle the car around. So it does make more of a difference than some might think.
I don't know if it's necessarily a thing with the TCR regulations, but I know that the British touring cars are very into weight penalties as well. You get weight penalties for winning and winning specific rounds and for overall position in the championship, and they can be the topic of much debate about whether they're good or not.
I mean, you can say about it what you will. I think they also have reverse grids are of course a big thing in many different touring car championships.
Yeah.
But like stuff like penalty rates, or I think when they used to have the hybrid systems in BTCC, which of course are also different cars to the TCRs we see right now, as Enrico Bräuniger is now very close to Eric Häusler's back bumper to the inside. Can he make a move stick? Eric Häusler is forced wide by his line he chose. Side by side through Bielstein. And I think we go side by side down the back stretch, but Eric Häusler might clear him before the Advent bow. And he does. Oh, wait, no, that's Eric Häusler past Piotr Seidel. Where did Bräuniger went missing?
Yeah, Bräuniger just dropped back a bit, I think, after the Dennis Kurtzer overtake incident. It seemed to catch up with Piotr Seidel a lot quicker than I thought he was going to do.
Shame on me, it was Eric Häusler, not Bräuniger, but great move there by Eric Häusler.
I think Zadival's going to be in another fight in a minute once Bräuniger catches up. He's not going to want to hang around and watch Eric Häusler disappearing off into the distance.
Very different lines here for the Mercedes arena. Of course, Bräuniger needs to clear the diver as fast as possible. I think that this isn't necessarily easy, because the diver has proven himself in the last couple of weeks to be a very good driver. I mean, if you think back to the M2 at Spa, they had a good performance as well. But if he doesn't
get... Carry on.
But if he doesn't clear him fast, he will miss out on getting close to Eric Häusler again.
I don't know whether it's a confidence in the TCR thing or not, but Breininger does seem to have trouble overtaking people right now. He was behind Häusler for a long time. You can see Piotr kind of holding him off fairly effectively.
Is he trying to have a look down the inside into the door? But the Devil is putting on a good defense, so...
He is, yeah, for sure.
When you know how to defend in a touring car especially, it can be a lot like a stone wall. Unless the opponent, in this case, Breininger, decides to just throw it down the inside. But even then you can always recover from it. Which is why touring car racing is so close compared to other forms of motorsport.
The overtaking in it does tend to be very aggressive, doesn't it? And it just has to be, because it's the nature of the cars. But it makes it exciting for us watching.
Well, people use the term rubbing is racing in Formula Series and stuff, but well, it doesn't originate from Formula Racing. This is where it comes from touring car racing. Because here you can actually lean on your opponent's car without too much of an issue for both cars. Of course, preferably you don't, but if somebody leans on my, well, quarter panel or something, I won't be mad. Because it doesn't completely throw my car off.
Yeah.
Where if you do that in a Formula 4 car, I wouldn't be so happy about it if it rips my wheel arch out. So, like, always depends on the context of the motorsport you're in.
I do love how much the touring cars move around when they're driving as well. You can see them, the weight shifting and the way the suspension works a lot more than you can in the GT3 cars. It makes them look a lot more alive.
What I always find interesting to observe is, for example, turn 1 at this track is actually the prime example of it. Coming into a turn, turning in, and then the rear inner wheel starts lifting off the ground and starts blocking. But it doesn't matter because the tire's in the air anyways. It's always kind of cool to observe. Seeing these cars driving on 3, sometimes even 2 wheels. If you think about, for example, the Red Bull Ring and the aggressive curbs in turn 1 and 2, I think it was mainly. It's crazy to have them drive on 2 wheels in real life.
Let's see if we can see it as they come down to turn 1 here. But leaving the infield section, what's it called? The complex. You can see they do it there on that right-hander. The back right wheel lifts off.
Meanwhile, the gap up front, 6.6 seconds between Thunder and Ladler. Steadily growing still.
Eric Häusler has managed to make 4 seconds on this battling duo as well, so... But Breininger just doesn't seem to be able to get past.
Looking at some lap times, Eric Häusler actually was quite a bit faster than Ladler the last lap around.
Yeah, Dominic Ladler's last lap time does seem to be a bit iffy. I wonder if he had a bit of a grass cutting moment.
Coming down into it all once again. Breininger is a lot more aggressive on the brakes, so Oh, but a bit wide there, and that's what we've talked about. If you're throttled too early, you'll just understeer.
Yeah, it's a very strange feeling when it happens and you're not expecting it if you've been driving a lot of rear-wheel drive cars. Because obviously when you get on the throttle, it puts the weight more towards the back of the car, which takes it off the driving wheels, which you're trying to accelerate at the same time, so it puts extra load on them, which is what you were saying earlier about learning throttle control. But it can be very weird for the first couple of corners.
But one thing I really like about the force feedback on these cars is that you can actually really feel when the grip comes loose, basically, under acceleration. As Dennis Kurzer is in a fight with Jet Sai side by side through the infield. Maybe going for the cutback, and that's also... Which TCR is in between? Mark Faletic, who has repaired his car, even though he's a lap down now. So he's still got a fight on for P6, which currently goes towards Jet Sai. But coming back to the force feedback on these cars, it actually tells you a lot about when the front wheels are getting unloaded or loaded. The rear is getting very light when you overstress the tires for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it is very active on these cars. I've always been a fan of the touring car racing and the smaller, less powerful, should I say, car racing on sim racing games, and I think the touring cars in here on RENNSPORT are very good, and they lead to some really close racing.
Yeah, between Zidaba and Browninger has also risen to about 1.2 seconds now. And we only got 8.5 minutes left to go. So approximately 4 laps. And we can also see that Faletic has some good pace here. Of course he's a lap down, but he's not losing out to both Jet Sai and Dennis Kurzer, and we definitely know the pace of Dennis Kurzer.
Yeah, I think Falatic knows that he's got the pace on the two cars ahead, but he doesn't want to get too involved in the battle. As I say, as he immediately gets involved in the battle.
Of course, it's a very tricky situation to be in because you can unlap yourself. That's not an issue. But getting past 2 cars, you do need to clear them. Or otherwise, you would have to forfeit the positioning. And that's probably fixed. Oh, and Jet Sai going wide there. That will lose him quite some time. So he kind of has to hope that he can either sweep both of them in one move, or they get so busy fighting that he can just go by one another, basically. If there was a gap building like between Zidaba and Bräuniger. Kurzer goes now very wide, and Fatick can do nothing else but just going through.
He's also probably pretty aware that it's very close to the end of the race, and he doesn't want to be interfering too much with the battle for 6th that's going on. But yeah, he is running his own race, and he's every right to overtake if he has the chance.
You can see that he is faster. He's closing in on Jet Sai, and he's dragging Dennis Kurzer with him. So it will be very interesting in just 1 or 2 laps.
probably worth it, Jared's side, just letting him through and trying to follow him. But I don't know if he knows that he's a lap down.
Well, he probably would be surprised if his Delta tells him behind him is an Audi and he sees a blue Hyundai Elantra TCR. Guess that kinda helps the situation here, but yeah, indeed, as you said, might be better for him, especially now with RENNSPORTs having a bit of a gap to them both, to just letting him through instead of trying to fight him.
Unless he's just enjoying the racing. Sometimes it can be just enough to enjoy having a fight with someone.
That is very true. Guess Fanatic is also biting himself somewhere because he's showing so good pace and basically threw his race fairly early with that lift-off oversteer coming into forward curve. Basically just shows what would have been possible for him.
Yeah, he had a very big off, and it obviously caused a lot of damage to his car. That took a long time to fix, which was unfortunate so early on in the race. He was holding good pace even early on in those early stages, so it's a bit of a if only situation for him. But at least he's getting some racing now.
We'll keep an eye on it, but meanwhile, only 4 minutes left to go. And Joachim Thunder built a gap of 8 seconds to Dominik Ladler.
Ladler's pace has gone back to a 2:08, which is more usual for him. Him and Ladler and Thunder, are both doing about the same lap time right now. Eric Heusler is tiny bit quicker, but he's still 5 seconds down the road, so he's got a lot of work to do in the next 4 minutes.
It would be a big surprise, but still coming currently in third. He started fairly far down the grid, I think P6 if I remember that correctly, alongside Dennis Kurzer.
Yeah, I think he started 5th.
So he definitely made his way up. And I also think that Bräuniger is a bit too far away now for anything in the last few laps.
Yeah, his lap time seems to have dropped off a little bit now. He's doing kind of 2:09, mid 2:09s. So the gap between him and Piotr Seidel is growing slightly. I wonder if he maybe just pushed his tyres a bit too much early on.
That's of course also a big part of touring cars, that you don't have as much in any other rear-wheel drive car. Because you only use the front tires, basically. The rear tires are just, I don't know, guiding wheels, so you don't tip over. They are not used at all. You barely use them for braking as well, because all the weight of the car is in the front. So you really have to be careful with the tires up front. Can be very fast for 2 laps, but it will drop off quite rapidly if you overstress them early on.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get the heat out of them once they get hot, because they are used for everything, every corner.
I think one race that showed it super well was our Founders League race with the front-wheel drive cars, where we've seen very different strategies with, I think it was Ladler not changing tires and then coming out far ahead in front of some of his competition. It was definitely a very interesting race to watch. And yeah.
But then his pace suffered quite a lot, didn't it? Because of not changing tires. Everyone else had a lot of pace, but it was a really interesting kind of strategy call.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end for him it still works because of a mistake of I'm not sure if it was Lunio or who was his main competition in that race, but it certainly was very different to observe the differences, and how much time. Of course, you gain net, I think, 29 seconds in the pits by not changing tires, compared to someone who did change tires. But
Yeah, that sounds about right.
it was super tight. And speaking of the Nordschleife and Founders League, we will soon have some news on that, because it will come back, of course, and I think better than ever. But now Joachim Thunder coming through the final turn to start his final lap of this race.
Gotta hold it together for one more lap, Thunder. You can do it.
I'm not gonna say anything, because in the past that didn't work out. But so far, mistake-free race from Joachim Thunder.
Oh, you said it, though. You said it.
No, I didn't. I said before that I didn't say it, so I didn't say it.
All right, okay, fair enough.
If it happens now anyways, it's totally on him. Nothing I can do. You can see that the car is also for him slightly shoving across, or shoving on the front axle. But that's to be expected. Even if you really treat the tires very well for half an hour, they're gonna start decreasing in grip levels quite a lot.
Yeah, front-wheel drive racing is not kind to tires.
Well, at least to one set of them. I think in the, let's call them lower budget TCR series, what they do is, I'm not sure about the big TCR series like WTCR or something, but they use the rear tires for the fronts, basically. Or use the fronts they used in qualifying on the rear, because you don't really use them otherwise.
That makes sense. I think most of us have got a front-wheel drive road car and have at some point put the front tyres on the back.
But here he comes through the final turn for the final time of the day. Joachim Thunder is gonna win at the Nürburgring and is returning to victory lane. In second, Dominik Ladler. And only 1.6 seconds behind, actually, Eric Häusler, so he did gain quite a lot there.
He did, yeah. And Breuninger was right on the back of Piotr Zeibel's wheel just as they hit the last corner. Just wasn't able to get past.
And we also got two new faces finishing their first broadcasted race in the form of Jerzy in P6, Mark Volatek in P8. And in between the two of them, it will be Dennis Kurzer in the second Audi. And this is your result for the day. I think it was a fairly interesting race. Might not have been the most action-packed, but nonetheless very interesting to watch.
There was a lot of wheel-to-wheel racing, though. It was good, I think. It was a good race.
Well, if you enjoyed this race, you can still continue to drive the front-wheel drive series for a couple more days, because it will stay on the schedule in the feature race and the multi-class races at Orchard Road and Road Atlanta respectively. In 2 weeks, we will be going to Monza with GT3s and hypercars for a 90-minute race, so pretty much the opposite of what we had today. Instead of a short sprint, we will have quite a long race to go. Next week, we will have the penultimate race of the RENNSPORT Community League, which will also be at Orchard Road. And you can actually go onto Discord right now and vote for the final track in the RENNSPORT Community League, because it isn't actually set in the calendar. So you can go out, vote for your favorite track. We have 3 tracks you can choose from: Jeddah, Hockenheim, and Road Atlanta. And you will be informed what track has won next Friday. So I think that was everything from my side. Do you have anything to add?
Nope. No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Well then, I hope you enjoyed tonight's race, and we see you next week on Friday again. Until then, have a great time, take care, and goodbye.
Goodbye.